You know, we had a neighbor over here. In fact, she lives in that house right there that just give us hell on noise. In fact, we
all that loud.
Talk about it. Yeah,
well,
tell me about it.
We offered her a vacation to Hawaii. We'd pay for it just while this chili bowl was going on. She didn't want no vacation. She just wanted to complain. You know.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's back when it was you only raced for what, 4 days?
Yeah, 3 days.
3 days.
Yeah, yeah. And but we've had, you name it, and it's happened to us.
Yeah.
We've had that years ago. We had that ice storm.
09 probably.
Yeah, we was putting the dirt in. Well, we had the barriers on the bottom to put the dirt in, and that's when the ice storm hit. And these electric people came in from all different states, and so we had to take some of our wall out down there and turn one.
Really?
Because they had tables set up there to feed all these guys. You know,
really?
It was. I mean, there's just so many different things that's happened, but overall, Chili Bowl's been awful good to us.
So how does all the struggles you've had in years past compared to dealing with COVID this year?
This is the first time that they've ever put a number on us, on our percentage. That's never happened before. Now the first 6 or 7 or 8 years, that wouldn't have affected us one bit.
Yeah.
We couldn't get 25% of the people in here. But I just think it was important to do it this year, even though it was wasn't a financial big thing, but it's that time of the year, the hotels, the restaurants, they've struggled all summer like the rest of us has, and it's just something that they needed. And we have a lot of employees here that kind of depends on this thing in the wintertime. So it was just good that we had it.
I know I was at Tally's one day, week before Chili Bowl started, and they were looking forward to Chili Bowl being in town.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so many people that you don't even think about. That's I know, like little Card Fleet down here that's got a speed shop, and I never even thought about it, but it's good for them.
Good folks. I met them at Davy Mac Motorsports.
Yeah, they are good people. Yeah. And then my chiropractor down here at 21st Memorial, believe it or not, he gets business off of it.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So it's just good for the whole city of Tulsa. And I know Matt, our lieutenant governor, a year ago when he came up, he said this was a $33 million impact for the city of Tulsa. So I'm just glad I can be a part of it.
Yeah. Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinnell.
Yep, he's a great guy.
Great guy, doing a lot for Oklahoma tourism.
Yes.
Tomorrow we're actually shooting some spots for the Oklahoma Department of Tourism.
Yeah, well, that Matt is, I wish we had more people like him in our government. Yeah.
He's always promoting Oklahoma and the outdoors and
absolutely
getting out there and being involved.
Yep, you're right.
So first year at Chili Bowl.
1987.
Didn't know what to expect.
No, really didn't. We had 35 cars. It was a 2-day show. We ran it on Saturday and Sunday. Boy, we were scared to death. That Sunday we ran against the Super Bowl. We were afraid we'd put them out of business, but I don't think we did.
Yeah.
No, it's we could introduce the crowd quicker than we could introduce our drivers that year. I know, I'll never forget it. We lost about $20,000 that year. And I thought, oh gosh, I don't know how much of this I can stand. And then the next year, I'm not sure, but I think we had a little bit of a loss. Then after that, we was probably working for minimum wage time we got all this in here and what little we made. But after that, this thing is just, it's like a pyramid. It just, you get, well, when you say it's an indoor show, people in their mind thinks it's like going down to Civic Center or the fairgrounds over here and racing on concrete, just single file, no racing, you know, just watching cars go around. But when they come here and watch it on dirt, and there was 2 or 3 grooves they could pass. They crashed, and so you get 2 people come down here, and they'd go back home and tell their friends, and then 4 more would come, and then they'd tell their friends, and that's why it ended up having so many out-of-state ticket holders here, because the people from Wisconsin, California, Illinois, Indiana, they're the ones, they was more of a midget type fan.
Right.
And so then when we got them tickets in here, then it got where, you know, and when I say we're out of tickets, we might have them to buy, I think it's a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4-day tickets. If you're a season ticket holder, you have to buy them 4, or you can buy 5 or 6. But we still have tickets, you know, that we can sell on Monday and Tuesday.
Right.
Then Back Your Work sponsors our Race of Champions on Tuesday. So that's just a bonus on Tuesday, getting to watch the who's who of racing. And I got to tell you, probably Tony Stewart probably helped us as much as anybody, because when Tony was running Indy cars, he was coming down here running. He ran a lot, and he loved this place. And then he got into NASCAR. Then he won the Cup Championship. But I mean, and then Tony was telling all of his guys down at NASCAR about it. And so they this year we probably had more. I think we had every Rick Hendrick driver there was. We had Chase driving. Alex Bowman owned some cars. Then Jeff Gordon was up here, and I mean, it's just it's unbelievable how many of them guys are up here, and they're just up here to have fun.
And I mean, I was here one year, and Jarrett had everything cleared out, and they were waiting on the Elliots to get here, and Dale Jr. Talk about how quickly some of the NASCAR guys are making the transition. You know, how many years ago was it with Tony Stewart coming in? I mean, so from the time he got involved to now, how many more NASCAR guys are here?
Oh, we've got 5 times as many now as we did have, because when Tony was here, not that many of the guys had drove dirt. Then Ryan Newman, he came up and run a little bit, but he was an old dirt racer. J.J. Yaley, he came from day one. I mean, he was here before he got to NASCAR. And Ricky Stenhouse, he's another one that ran dirt. In fact, first race he ever ran was with our sprint car series over in Memphis. Then you've got Christopher Bell from down here at Norman. He's won this thing 3 times. He's run dirt his whole life, and so it's just when you got them kind of names there, and what's neat about it, them guys can walk around the pits, and they don't have that many people hounding them for an autograph or whatever, and that's what they love. They can just come here and just be a racer and just have fun. I remember when we got Roger Penske as our Grand Marshal. Well, John Christner Trucking is one that really got him down here. And Roger come in here and he said, I just wanted to see what this Chili Bowl's all about, because he said, when them kids get to Daytona, said that's all they're talking about. He said, I had to come up here and see what this is all about. You know, so, and then, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, they had 7 NASCAR people come in here. I mean, from maybe number 3 on down.
Really?
And they spent the week up here just to see what was happening up here, because there's not another race in the country that has this many cars in one division, and that the tickets are sold out a year in advance with a waiting list, and there's just not another race like that.
Yeah.
So I'm just so tickled to be a part of it.
Now, there's been other venues, other states that have tried to replicate Chili Bowl, right?
Yeah, kind of be like a Super Bowl. You could have 2 good teams, but it's not the Super Bowl, you know. And so there's not another building like this. To be able to put their trailers in here, have a trade show, have a dirt track like that they can pass on, and have enough seats to where we can make money. There's just not one. I tell people they don't understand how big this building is. Like that lower level where we have the racetrack, you can put 3 floors from the Astrodome in there sideways. That's how big, and that's just a third of the building, you know.
How many acres?
11 acres.
11 acres.
I told him, I said, you can find out how big this building is if you go with me to pay the rent.
Now, talk a little bit about the dirt that goes into making the track.
Is it the same dirt?
There's probably 200 loads of original dirt off the 5/8 mile racetrack. Frank McElroy was the track man over there, and Denny Tuttle was the assistant fair manager at the time. And when they was taking that dirt out, I asked Denny, I said, Denny, I said, is there any way I can get some of this dirt and just stockpile it over here? Just, I really wasn't thinking about Chili Bowl. I don't know what I was thinking about. And I said, could I just stockpile some of it over here? And he said, yeah, we got room over here on this one lot. So I had Frank McElroy bring some of that clay, and that was the clay we used the first 2 years originally. Then since then we just added to. But some of it is the original clay off the old Tulsa Speedway.
Now talk about track design, track setup, building the track in the early years. Different planes going on.
Those will get you. Yeah. Cars aren't so bad. Those are bad.
Yeah, wait till the fighters come over.
You're probably good now.
So talk about track building and design early years compared to this year.
Well, in our early years, we didn't put jersey barriers down on the floor to put the clay inside of. We just started putting dirt down, and it would just kind of fall off to where it wanted to fall off to. And we probably had half as much banking in it in the early years as we do now. And the design, the measurements is still the same. I mean, that's what's real important on this racetrack. When you got a small racetrack, you can't make it too wide. You can't get the straightaways banked too much. You got to have it different measurements going in than you do coming off, and so that part of it has been the same from day one. But I think that goes back to I hadn't been retired from racing that long when we decided to do this, and so just driving a race car, I felt like I knew what the track needed to be.
Talk about how the track changes from day to day almost on the cushion and everything else. We know the measurements don't change, but just talk about the difference for the drivers from night to night.
Yeah, and Gravel's been doing our racetrack for the last 10 or 12 years, does a great job on it. And we changed where we stockpiled our clay last year, and it's on top of concrete, and so our clay came in wetter this year than it has in a long time. So you have that to deal with just a little bit, whether you have a wet summer, dry summer, or whatever. But then a racetrack, kind of like a race car. You think you know what you want, and that's what you do, and then sometimes you hit it and sometimes you miss it. But overall, Gravel's done a good job to race as many cars, as many laps as we do on this thing. I know on Saturday night when we start racing at 10 o'clock in the morning, and at 9:30 that night you can still have a good main event. That's saying a lot.
Let's talk about the fans. I mean, there's pages dedicated to Chili Bowls. Talk about the Chili Bowl fans, how it seems like they don't have to be a fan of racing it throughout the year, but they're Chili Bowl fans.
They are Chili Bowl fans, and originally when we started this, they was dyed in a bull race fans. I remember the year that we was going to do HBO pay-per-view, and we was talking to the people out there at 20th Century, and the people that was going to put it on, produce it, and they was talking about getting a Darrell Waldrop, you know, as a color man or somebody from NASCAR, somebody with a name. I told them, I said, hey, these fans here, you can't BS them. I said, if we don't get somebody in here that knows what a cushion is, knows what a slide job is, they'll tar and feather him, run him out of town. So they agreed with me on that, and we just got our regular dirt announcers, and so, you know, we've been on pay-per-view, we've been on ESPN, we've been on MAV TV the last 10 years. So when people see this, it's almost unbelievable that you can have 2 or 3 grooves on this small of a racetrack. So if you're any type of race fan at all, you got to come see it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, one thing this year when we had our 25%, you could just tell the electricity wasn't in the air like it is when you got them shoulder to shoulder in there. So I'm really looking forward to next year.
Yeah. Let's talk about the different generations of drivers who have come up. I mean, I'm from this area, so I know Andy Hillenberg, and I know the Hillenbergs and Blevins, and
yeah.
Let's talk about the different generations of drivers that have come through here.
Well, and another thing that's kind of funny, it's not funny, but it's certainly different. When we started the Chili Bowl, you had midget drivers, and I mean that's all they drove was midgets. Then you had sprint car drivers, and that's all they drove was sprint cars. And so it was 6 or 7 years into this Chili Bowl before they started driving sprint car guys drive a midget or a midget guy drive, because back then, early, it was kind of like the Hatfields and McCoys. The midget guys wanted to outrun the sprint car guys and vice versa. And we had charity basketball games back then. Lanny would coach a sprint car team, and I'd coach a midget teams, you know, and we just, and then like Andy, he was the first Okie to win it back in '94, and I've told people he was probably a little bit faster in '93 than he was in '94, but it was just some of that Chili Bowl luck. He ended up just killing the car in the corner there and couldn't get there. And the year that Andy won it, I tell this story a lot. Page and PJ Jones started up front, and PJ killed the engine down in the corner, got up in the loose stuff and just killed the engine. And he went to the back, and in 20 laps, he was back up there battling for the lead with his little brother. And people said, yeah, a lap car got in the way and crashed them both. And what they don't realize, that lap car was Kenny Schrader. Yeah, but that was one of the greatest runs. And then the Swindells, they've owned this place for years. And I remember one year Sammy got in trouble on his qualifying night, and he back in the E feature, he come through it, the D, the C, the B, started at the back of the A and was up to second place in the A. Probably would have won it, and then the driveline got bent in it. But I mean, I've seen some guys make some miraculous runs at this place.
And keep going there with some of the repeat winners and some of the, you know, Cruzman's won a couple years, Swindell. Talk about some of those drivers who have won early years multiple times and then lead up to Rico and Christopher.
Well, back in the early days when them guys won it, and there was some good racers back then, but they're kind of like our infield workers. My grandson Matt, he runs the show, and about 4 or 5 years ago I said, Matt, our infield crew's getting slower. He said, Pawpaw, he said they're getting older. That's kind of the way them racers, not that they're not racers, they just had some birthdays and your reflexes just not as good. So that's kind of like down at NASCAR. You know, they used to have some older drivers there, and now then you get some of these kids. I mean, like Christopher Bell, when he got out of that car the other day, he didn't even look like he's old enough to have driver's license, you know. And there's a bunch of them like that. But I seen an interview with Kyle Larson, and that kid is unbelievable. And they asked him about comparing him to Steve Kendrick. He's won all the Outlaw Champions, and he said, you know, you can't compare, because he was in his day and I'm in my day. Equipment wasn't as good. Competition might have been better then. You know, he said you really can't compare it, but the fact is, both of them was real good.
Yeah. They touched on the family thing a little bit with Matt, you know, and I got to visit with Norm during the A feature.
Yeah.
And talk about how your family's involved between Matt and you guys, you know, grandson at races, and I think Matt's wife.
Yeah, Ashley. Yeah, she does the scoring. Matt runs the show, and they do it with our sprint car series in the summertime. And my wife kind of runs the office. Our daughter's in there. Tommy, our oldest boy, Blake's dad, he's really the only one that don't work for us during shootout and Chili Bowl. Our youngest one, Steve, he and Gravel's the one that stays here till 2 o'clock in the morning on the racetrack. So our granddaughter, Kaylee, she's in the office. So it really is a family sport, you know, and Lanny and Beverly, their kids come up here and work, and Beverly's here all the time, and her daughter's here, both of their kids. So it is a family endeavor.
And talk about Laney, early years, and he passed away, you know.
Lanny and I was probably one of the better partnerships that ever happened. I know I ran the shootout in '86, and when I ran it, I thought we could run these cars in here. I ran micros and go-karts. So I called Lanny. I didn't know Lanny that well at the time, and told him about this building, and I thought what we could do. So he said, I don't believe there's a building that big. So anyway, he and Beverly drove up. We looked at the building, and that's when we decided to do it. But Lanny, he just loved to work. And so as we partnered up on this thing, when we got here, these bleachers were just 15 rows high, and we built everything to make them 35 rows high before they bought these new bleachers. But Lanny liked to work, and I kind of like to promote. So the things that I like to do, he didn't care that much about, and vice versa. And so our partnership was unbelievable. And I know when we lost Lanny here 3 or 4 years ago, I remember when I came out here that first day to start putting this dirt in, I cussed him when I drove in the gate. I said, you left me with this mess right here, you know. But he was a great partner. Great partner.
A lot of history, you know. Like they said, Norm. Tell people about Norm, driving a Chili Bowl truck all these years, pace truck.
We like to burn him up about 10 or 12 years ago. Lanny and I, we thought we was stunt coordinators. So my banker had a record service too, and he worked, he done the record work for a Ford dealership out there out west. So he got me a new Mustang convertible for a pace car. And of course Norman was driving it. And so we had a stunt guy that was gonna drag him behind this pace car through a little bit of gasoline and kind of do a little stunt there. And I remember that night because that stunt guy, we was running behind on time or something. And I told him, I said, we don't have time to do this stunt. And he wearing me out. Well, then we decided to work on the racetrack a little bit. I said, hey, I said, go ahead and do your stunt, but I said, don't put much gasoline out there. And I'll never forget it. He said, got you, boss, got you, boss. And I turned around and I was doing something, and I heard the crowd start booing. And I turned around and looked. He had, I don't know how much gas, he must have had 5 gallons of gasoline. This whole front straightaway, I couldn't even see the grandstands on the front straightaway. It's just black smoke. So Norman gets in there and he gets this boy behind him. The reason the stunt guy wasn't doing it is because we'd already broke his leg about, a month earlier at another show doing a stunt. He dragged this kid through this fire, and this convertible is burning. Norman pulls it in the infield, and I'm in the infield, and old Smoking Joe was riding with him. I love to tell this story. Smoking Joe is sitting on the door holding on to the windshield when all this happens. Then here comes this gasoline and fire. So he had a long-haired, had his hair in a ponytail. Well, when the fire came, he just dove down in the floorboard. And so Norman gets around there and he comes into the infield. Well, old Smoking Joe, he comes out of the floorboard, jumps in the seat on the door, and he bails out. Well, that rubber band he had holding his long hair together, it had burned it. His old hair just flared out here. He looked like a werewolf coming out of that car. I asked Norman, Norman, did that fire get close to you? He said, look at my eyebrows, it burnt my eyebrows off. What are you talking about? But that was another one of our adventures. And then my banker, he's there. I had about 10 people from the dealership here watching this car burn. We burnt the back seat in that car even. So my wife likes to tell the story that that's the first new car that she ever bought that never did get to sit in. So just another one of our chili bowl stories.
Yeah. So where do you see the future, long term, chili bowl going?
We can't get any more people in here. Our prices are pretty high right now, and I think from our standpoint to generate any more revenue, it's all got to come from sponsors, but they're starting to come around a little bit more. So, and I can tell you right now, I'm not smart enough to go out and get sponsors, but they are coming around a little bit. So I just think the number of cars, I don't think it'll go up because I don't think there's any more midgets in the country, And I think, if anything, well, I know, just driving through the pits the last 2 or 3 years, when we started, we probably had a dozen real good cars, and then you had a dozen mediocre cars. Then the rest of them was just there to be a part of it. Now then you can drive through there and there's 200 good cars in there. It's got the best that money can buy on them. And that's one of the biggest changes. It's talent, with the Christopher Bells and the Kyle Larsons and the Ricos that's winning these races. That helps, but there's some other ones that you could put them 3 guys in other cars and win too. The equipment's there.
We noticed that, shocks.
Oh yeah.
Just different things like that.
Oh yeah. It's just, I remember when I raced, we could go down here to O'Reilly's and buy shocks to go on our race car. Now then, on a sprint car, you can spend $2,000 for a set of shocks, and then you got to spend another $2,000 where you'll have a spare set. Yeah. So, that's what's happened to racing nowadays.
Yeah. Talk about how it's probably gone from a lot of guys coming in with open top trailers.
Open trailers, yeah. Now then, there's some trailers that comes in here that's the same as NASCAR trailers. It's just, it's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy, but if you got the money, your kid, that's what he wants to do, and you can afford it, why not?
That's awesome. That's good. We got a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
anything else you think of?
I have one more question. Do you by chance know about the bus, the big blue bus that comes in here?
Oh yeah, that's, hang on, let me think of his name, Ace McCarthy from Tahlequah. Yeah, I remember when he came in here about 3 years ago with his bus and his race car in the back of it, and I went over and talked to him and thanked him. I loved that. I had the photographers go get some pictures, but Ace McCarthy, he's another one. He's from down here at Tahlequah. He could get any kind of trailer he wanted to, but for him to come in here and rig up a school bus, no blue school bus, with that right there, that's just some of that having fun at the Chili Bowl. And in fact, Ace drove our sprint car a time or two out there at Creek County. He's a good kid, but for him to even come up and think about something like that, it was neat.
I'm sorry, one more question. Talk about seeing female drivers come into this. It's kind of something new, isn't it?
Well, it was probably 6, 7, 8 years into the Chili Bowl before we had a female driver. But now then, in the last 5 years, we have a lot of female drivers. And we got some good female drivers. That Shannon McQueen out of California, she comes in here every year. And I don't know how many, well, the gal from down here at Muskogee, you got Holly Holland right here in Tulsa. I mean, there's some, yeah, there's some hitters here. And then Harley White, she runs sprint cars with us all summer. She runs, but
evolution of the sport.
It is. I mean, it's just this year at the Chili Bowl, it wouldn't surprise me if we didn't have 12 or 15 female drivers. You know, that one that drove this year, she's a cheerleader at OU. I'd forgot about that.
Taylor Reamer.
Yeah. Yeah. So. I mean, it's just a neat deal, and I'm gonna say it again. I'm just proud to be a part of it.
That's awesome.
Taylor's gonna be running full time this year. No more cheerleading.
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.